Good afternoon. I've lived with many identities. A lot of you all know that I'm a fashion and textile designer. A few of you all know that I'm a theater actor. Some of you all know probably that I'm a dentist. And as a child, when I was growing up in my school, everybody knew that I was a painter and a classical dancer. So I enjoy living all my identities. And today, I think that's what I want to talk about. Enjoying how I design my own life. How does one design their own life? By being conscious about the being. When I say being, I mean you should be conscious about your surroundings, about how much you absorb from what is there around you. What is the next important thing apart from being conscious about your own being? What comes after being conscious is being compassion. That's where your emotions come in. So it's very important that we should be very compassionate towards each other, towards animals, towards everything. The third thing is being creative, and that's where the actions come in. So all the three of them, when they are balanced, is when you create yourself as a totality. And I'm very glad that today I'll be talking about my personal journey at various levels, but to begin, I will start off with my dentistry. I started my dentistry and I finished my when I was 17, 18 is when I started my dentistry, and I finished dentistry in 5 years and started working. My first job was as a dental lecturer. Practice in the same college where I studied, they offered me a job, and I was practicing in the same hospital and also in the evening in the clinic. And then one day I was just going by in Bangalore. I was in Bangalore then. Right now I live in Hyderabad. In Bangalore, I just asked my professor to stop the car. I went to the NIFT campus and picked up the prospectus. And then my professor looked at me and said, "Now what?" I said, "Why not?" And then NIFT was a cakewalk for me. I did my master's in textile design. So when I joined NIFT, everybody kept asking me that you're already settled, you're a doctor, probably I was the first dentist to pass out from NIFT. So everybody asked me, until everybody kept asking me as to why I did the career switch, and that too from such drastic streams of design to from dentistry to design. I was like, why not? All my childhood I painted and I danced. There was so much of inspiration to gather and be there that I really didn't really miss dentistry after I joined NIFT. And then immediately after I finished NIFT, I did my second master's, MA Fashion in Milan. And I think that was the turning point in my life. Milan changed me as a person, personally, and also professionally. I think that's where my journey as Ganesh Nallari, the designer, began when I came back to India. But before I continue the story, I would like to disclose another little secret, another identity which I carry with me as a burden. I was named after the Lord of Good Fortune, the Lord of Beginnings, and the Remover of Obstacles. Everybody jokes that I live up to my namesake for the way I look. I laugh it off, for I've lived all sizes and I'm pretty thick-skinned about it by now. Since my childhood, I've always loved to draw and paint. When children my age were out there on the street playing cricket, I would lock myself up in my room and paint. My favorite was a big blooming lotus from which the orange sun rose. And if I weren't painting, I would be dancing. I was trained in classical dance, and as a child, I won many awards and was very proud of my achievements. I was a shy kid, and my only sibling was a black Pomeranian. I was a fair student, but as I reached mid-school, my grades fell. I started gaining weight and was bullied in my neighborhood. I did not have close friends in school. My dance and art were my only friends, with whom I shared every secret. And since then, they have been my pillars of strength. It took me 33 years to tell my secret to the world, that I was wrongly touched by a man at all the rightly places that were meant to be just mine. He was a family member, and that killed my trust even more. I felt betrayed. I was sexually abused from as long as I can remember until I was 17. And finally one day, I screamed my first no, the sound of which still reverberates, and that day, it all ended. Surprisingly, everybody turned a blind eye to it then. Yet today they ask me why I did not tell anyone. Well, nobody asked me. Maybe the trickery and threats stopped me from speaking out then. It took a while for me to realize that it wasn't my fault. However, it was very confusing for me as a child. I was afraid, lived with a lot of shame, guilt and low self-esteem. Isolating and discovering my sexual orientation like my body never belonged to me. There was a lot of anger as much as the zeal to press the refresh button. Gasping and running away from the familiarity of the past towards newer destinations and opportunities. Life began now. A design entrepreneur by profession, a gold medalist with 2 masters in textiles and in fashion, I'm not a quack. I did all that after studying and practicing dentistry. But I guess destiny had its own path, and dentistry now is history. Apart from designing clothes, I continue to learn dance and also pursue my new passion, theatre. As an actor, I get to live and experience all that I missed out in my growing up years, including those mushy love stories for which I cover my silver with the deepest, darkest brown. And the rest, as they say, is history. Today, I forgive everybody, letting it all go, creating and living multiple identities as I immerse myself in art. Nourishing myself with compassion and empathy, hoping to rebuild the trust that is lost. I have always wondered what is the perfect world for a child. Is it simply the absence of war? As the father of our nation once said, if we are to have real peace, we must begin with the children. We have to create that world where every child can grow with good mental and physical health, where every child lives with dignity and in peace. Before we teach a child to respect adults, I think it's important for us to respect them. Children often show us rather than tell us that something is upsetting them. There may be many reasons for changes in their behavior. But if we notice a combination of worrying signs, it is time to call for help or advice. Listen. Talk to your children, understand and communicate better with them. Teach them the difference between the right touch and the wrong touch. The World Day for Prevention of Child Abuse is observed on 19th of November. For many adult survivors, childhood sexual abuse has lasting influence on thinking, feeling, behavior and relationships. If you are a survivor, remember that you have been living this difficult story for years, and there are no quick fixes. Pace yourself and share this with someone who will support and encourage you. It's okay, and in fact, it's important that you move slowly. Make it a priority to take care of you. Little by little I'm gone, little by little I'm born. With each passing day, just a little every day. I am Ganesh, and he is my favorite god. that's my secret. I carried that burden with me for almost 33 years. This is what I was for 33 years. So I spoke about my abuse for the first time the day my abuser died. I didn't know if I was supposed to be happy or celebrate that day or mourn because he was family. But when I told about this to my friend who's a filmmaker, he said he wanted to make a film, which invariably went on to become I Am, and it won the national award in 2012. So the biggest challenge for me was I was growing as a designer, and I had such beautiful, identities I had created for myself. I felt like, do I need this unnecessary burden, of being called a survivor, which had to be tagged with me all my life? So I told my friend that, you know what, I don't know if I want to talk about it ever openly. But he said, Ganesh, if it's not for you, who will do it? And I think at some point your personal and professional lives converge. And I'm 40. I'm single. I don't have children because I'm a homosexual in India. And I said, why not? When I see kids of my friends who have kids around me, the only thing which concerns me is, I hope they're fine. That's what concerns today. So here I did Unspoken for all our children of the future. And I'm sure it's also for all those survivors. Probably even in this auditorium here, there are a lot of people sitting around who are living in denial, who live in misery. So for those of you who had certain experiences like this in the past, I think it's very important that if you think you need help, please take mental health. Don't neglect mental health. When you have a small wound, you rush to the hospital if there's blood oozing out. But I think why do we tend to stop ourselves from going to a psychiatrist when you have a problem, And like I said, there are a lot of issues which a survivor, usually somebody who's experienced with child sexual abuse, carries forward. There are so many difficulties in terms of relationship matters, being depressed. But I think for me, my art has helped me the most. From my childhood, whether I was painting or dancing, or whether today I do my theater, everything was through dance or art. They were my best friends. That was the only way I could reach out to express. And I think what's important is to each of us is to find our strengths. Whatever problem we have, we need to find our strength and work towards it. And that's how you create, you design your own life. And I have no regrets about what has happened. But one thing I can say is, a survivor never heals. Never. But he can only try. And this is my little journey of how I put forward the